always ready.
Okay, don't start a brawl amongst you guys. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. We have a wonderful crowd here with us, a lot of auto workers from our region that are out here. I'd like to acknowledge some of the presidents. We have Dave Cassidy, president of 444, Emile Nabout, president of 195, Tulio DePonte, president of 2458, Brian Hogan from the Windsor District Labour Council, and last but not least, my president from Local 200, John Dagnolo, on the heels of a victory and getting a lifeline for workers out at NEMAC last night. We're all very pleased to see those workers who stood back and fought, and quite frankly, we didn't see any levels of government out there trying to support them. They did this all on their own. Congratulations to those sisters and brothers on getting a lifeline towards keeping that work here. So today we're here. You know, today we're here to talk about our NDP vision for auto. Certainly over the last 4 years, the three of us have been extremely vocal about the importance of protecting good auto and manufacturing jobs in our region. And I want to take you back to 2015, when Justin Trudeau was up the road in London in the previous campaign and quite simply said that manufacturing was over, that we had to talk about transitioning away. And you know, that prediction from him has led to thousands of job losses throughout our region. We felt them here in Windsor, Essex. We certainly know that, you know, we've just lost a third shift at Essex engine plant. We have, you know, the third shift that's being fought for right now at the FCA plant. And then we have the NEMAC plant and the battle that they've been through over the last 2 weeks, trying to keep their jobs from going to Mexico. As the trade critic for the NDP over the past 4 years, I have seen the results across this country of unfair trade. Free trade no longer exists when you have a country that is paying workers $2 an hour. You tell me how Canadian workers and workers in Windsor, Essex are supposed to compete with that type of pressure. And quite frankly, those workers in Mexico are being mistreated. They don't have health and safety. There is no such thing as a level playing field in trade today. And workers are paying the price. Our communities are paying the price. We can and we should be doing better for trade. We have the TPP that was signed, which is a very regressive deal, which locally we had a tremendous pushback from working people and across the country to say that this deal will not help working people. And now, again, facing the losses that we see at NEMAC and the fight that they're in to be able to even keep a lifeline for the next couple of years. This is the legacy of free trade for working people, and we need a plan for fair trade. We need trade that isn't based on a model from the 50s that we just keep repeating over and over again. We need trade that will actually protect jobs in our country and protect working people. So this is something we're dedicated to in the NDP. And we right now, you know, are facing a potential deal with the US, but we don't even know where we're going with that. Another impact locally has been on steel and aluminum tariffs, and that is a thread that has gone throughout our entire manufacturing sector. So today we're here to talk about good auto jobs, how we protect jobs in our community. And the question today is, who can you trust to stand up for you? If you're an auto worker or a manufacturing worker in Windsor, Essex, across this country, the NDP is the party that you can trust to stand up for you, to show up on picket lines, to show up at protest lines, to fight for your jobs. And that's something that we are committed to continuing to do going into this election in past 2019. You've had strong voices, and Cheryl and Brian and I here for auto workers, and we will continue to be that voice for fair trade across our country.
Okay, thanks. Just taking a look where we're standing right now, I can tell you that I look over across the river and I see that, you know, I think it's $6.5 billion Chrysler's is investing right now. Canada is laggard. We do not have an auto strategy. The Liberals have been sitting around waiting for manufacturing to drift off into the sunset for 4 years. That's their strategy. We're here to stand up for workers. All the people standing behind us here are the middle class. They're the hearts of our communities. They're the people that keep our small businesses thriving. They're the people that keep all of our community thriving. We have a plan in the NDP. Our strategy, we've been talking about this for over a decade. You cannot keep being reactive. To hear the Liberals talk about how they're going to enhance employment insurance, and that's your plan. We have a strategy, we have a plan. We want to move forward and be proactive. This can be the future. Windsor, the workers behind me here, these are qualified, award-winning producers in our factories. They can transition, they can build the cars of the future, but you need a government that is part of a targeted strategy, not just giving money to their friends with no stipulation. We've got to have a plan, and that's what we're saying we would do. You've got to have a summit with your key expertise there to develop that kind of a strategy, and we've been saying this for years and years and years, and now I'm here to just reiterate, with an NDP government, we would urgently engage in this kind of a system to have an auto strategy that is realistically bringing us into the future.
Thank you. And it's important to recognize that we have our national strategy, but it also means local connections here. First and foremost is that we actually did have an active working model for auto. It was the Auto Pact. It was a trade agreement that was negotiated because of the skill level that we had with our workers and our capability of innovation of the age. The Liberals and Conservatives gave up on that. In fact, when the ruling came, they didn't even challenge the WTO on that. They simply just folded tent, went home, and just pretended nothing happened. And the result is that our automotive footprint has shrunk ever since. In fact, most recent investments in terms of when we actually supported the auto industry was 13% public investment to assist in the financial aid at that time. Whereas you come forward, that was actually the percentage of the industry we had in North America. That has shrunk now. The investments are around 7%. In fact, when you look at what's behind us here in Detroit, Michigan, they're getting approximately $16 billion of innovation at a time when it's basically the platinum age of auto, where we see the innovation not only just in the electrification of the vehicles, but also the components and the other types of materials that are used for it, for research and design, that go into transferable technology to other industries. So what do we compare that to over in Canada? Is over the last 4 years, $6 billion in total for all of Canada versus $16 billion versus Detroit. That doesn't even look at the issues that are going on with regards to Mexico basically eating our lunch. We have Brazil, we have Europe, a series of investments in Japan and China, of course. And so we are being left behind without a strategy. It was just over here, and it's ironic that the Cobo Center is being demolished, because that's where Ray Tanguay actually presented the government with an actual auto strategy. It was funded by taxpayers, by Ray Tanguay, to actually give this Prime Minister an auto strategy. And so we took that deal, and he took that work that taxpayers paid for, and they put it on a shelf and did nothing. And a lot of our work does go back. I mean, we're working on a green car strategy with Jim Stanford, with David Suzuki, looking at the innovation that's capable, and in Canada is without even a battery plant. How did we get here? It was neglect, and it was always being on the defense and ignorance. It's never about going forward. We need to go on the offense, and now is the time. It's worth it. The people behind us have done their part. It's time for the government to do their part. I'll point to a specific how it affects us here locally. Prime Minister came in and he used pretty words to talk about innovation. He used pretty words to talk about the value of people. But here we have the Pacifica right here, built in our own community, where a $300 million subsidy program went out, and they didn't even actually include it in the list. What they did include in that list, they included vehicles from Japan, vehicles from China, vehicles from Malaysia, vehicles from Russia, vehicles from Taiwan, vehicles from Mexico, vehicles from Germany, but they did not include the one vehicle built by our men and women of our community, because they didn't even look at the formula properly. So we fought together, and that's what you can count on as New Democrats, and I'm really proud of the work with local Unifor, all the affiliates, to make sure that this vehicle is now actually on the list. But it shouldn't be the sole survivor. It should be the example of the innovation, the technology. And what we'll be doing as New Democrats is looking at that current program that has $300 million of taxpayers' money going to places like Malaysia, and looking at that evaluation process, raising it to $15,000 per vehicle, and also augmenting the support of that vehicle purchase program for domestic vehicles. And same with the domestic vehicle procurement strategy for municipalities, provincial governments, and federal governments. These are the things that we have as controllables. As Donald Trump and others go to fight for their industries, and as others in other countries have national auto strategies like South Korea, we can't sit around and wait anymore. So what we're proposing is A, to increase the specific auto innovation fund. The Liberals got rid of the fund and they lumped it in with a group of other industries, including aerospace and a myriad of other different things. We're going to separate that back out as a separate innovation auto fund for automotive industry. And then second of all, we're actually going to look at the innovation fund here with regards to vehicle purchasing to focus on domestic purchasing, increasing the incentives, because it's ludicrous that a vehicle, this many passenger vehicles, would actually be let off the list, and we're going to make sure that it's actually going to get the incentives necessary. So with that, I'll conclude and thank the workers here behind us, and in particular NEMAC. Again, it's the most classic example, and I know that John Dagnolo has a couple words to say here as well too, being the most recent example of workers having to fight back. And thank you very much, John, for you and your members for a tremendous success.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I'm a prime example why we need a manufacturing policy. I want you to think about this. We put language in place to protect the workers. We need our government to do the same thing. I'm tired of watching families get hurt. I'm tired of families losing everything. And this has been happening for many years now. So we need a policy in place. I don't know how many times we got to say this. NEMAC's just one of many plants that have been going through this. And we're frustrated. We're tired of it. So the Liberal Party, they need to send a message that they will put a policy in place. I know the NDP party has been fighting a long time for this, and they've stuck up for our members. But unfortunately, we don't see that with the Liberal Party. We don't see that with the Conservative Party. They've been bouncing back and forth, making promises, and they don't keep them. So I'm here today in support of these people because that's all they've been doing, is supporting the workers in this city and throughout Ontario. We've lost hundreds of thousands of jobs, and it's so frustrating to see this happen. And at the NEMAC facility right now, here we are again. We've negotiated something to fast track arbitration, because once again the company's going to try and take that work to Mexico. We cannot compete. We cannot compete with these countries. I'm tired of them making trade deals with countries that make $2 an hour, $1 an hour. They know it. So it's got to stop. It's got to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Just wanted to clarify, when Brian was talking about the Pacifica, we're talking about the hybrid vehicle and the subsidies that would go to buying vehicles that are as close to the goal as zero emission vehicles. And initially, the Pacifica was left off of the list of eligible vehicles that Canadians could get subsidies for when they were buying vehicles. And that's a prime example of the epic fail we have from the Liberals over the last 4 years, just proving to us that they really don't have a strategy and they're not forward thinking.
So you talked about the innovation fund. Can you wrap up and what the entire auto strategy would be?
Yeah, so a couple points is that there's money left available that was never used in the innovation fund, so that's rolled over automatically. And then there's an additional $300 million that we would specifically allocate additionally to automotive to top that off right away. Then there would be the incentive program that would be expanded, but also be recalibrated to focus on domestic purchasing. So the auto strategy also involves what we used to have as the Canadian Auto Partnership Council, where we actually had regular meetings, public access to that, including media access to it. In fact, most of their meetings now take place over in Detroit. I don't think, in fact, that they've had many meetings in Canada over the last number of years. I can't remember the last one I was at that assembled everybody and was open. In fact, in 2002, 2003, I was at 2 of those meetings where they included everything from the dealers, the parts manufacturers, the auto assemblers, a series of other OEM involvement, and research and development from universities. And there was hundreds of people that gathered and worked at different components. So we need to get that going again, because we've just become basically a reactionary point. So those are the key things that even Ray Tanguay most recently reported on. So that's available publicly. It was presented to the minister just over here in Detroit, which hasn't been acted on in 3.5 years. So these are things that we can do immediately.
The work has been done. The work has been done for many, many years by a lot of folks that are standing behind us, by industry, by all of the partners that are involved. Unfortunately, we don't have any government that has the courage to implement it. You know, we lost hundreds of thousands of jobs under the Conservatives, and that trend just continued on under the Liberal government. Without a champion for auto, without someone who has the courage to stand up and fight for jobs before companies come and rip them out, we're going to continue on this dangerous trend. And the partnership to an auto policy is fair trade, making sure that trade agreements put working people first, and that manufacturing is front and center in protecting those jobs. You know, it's become some type of a bad thing to say you want to protect jobs in your country, but as we've said here today, every other country is doing this. We are the ones who are falling far behind what other countries are doing to protect good jobs that support communities. Everyone here knows and understands that. We need the government with the courage to stand up to corporations and to say that we will not allow you to just rip and ship jobs out of our country that are sustaining communities here.
To be a devil's advocate, the Liberal government can say we did invest. Look at NEMAC. They invested millions of dollars into NEMAC, and look what's happening now. So how do you prevent another NEMAC?
Oh, it's written
No
in.
stipulations.
So-
They gave
so-
them money with no stipulations. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, so there is a process under the actual, and we've called for this to be released. So when you get actually a grant or a incentive program like they were given back in 2017 when I was there, I warned the government of the day that they put in the right things possible there for to ensure that it's going to be staying here. They chose not to do that. They won't even share that. So right now, sitting in the minister's file is the report from NEMAC, that innovation from that $3 million. There's nothing stopping him from bringing back to the public what that report said from that money and how it's going to be. In fact, there's a regular reporting process as part of the actual money that they gave, and all that can be made public with the minister's discretion or the prime minister's discretion right now. So all that was part of the process for actually allocation of money. We've received an email back from the minister's office saying that they met the terms and conditions. So they don't want to release that because one of two things: either it was very embarrassing and damaging, or second of all, maybe those reports weren't done. Maybe those reporting processes were never followed up with NEMAC. Maybe they're actually deficient in some other way that we don't know. They're just saying it through an email from the minister's office to me that they met those terms and conditions. But NEMAC this is the key point. If NEMAC leaves Windsor here, they rip root out of all of Canada. This is a huge story. The NEMAC is investing across this globe in 3 different continents. This is the exact opposite of their business plan across the globe. So the minister in the 2017 $3 million, he was supposed to get reports from NEMAC on a regular basis and how that research and technology was used for production.
Yes.
So ironically, he could be getting a report from Mexico if it wasn't for the work for John and all of his members who stood tough and strong, because that report could be coming from Mexico instead of Windsor, and it's totally unacceptable. But they're there, so why won't the minister release those reports, or A, or B, were they never done?
This is the problem. There's no accountability or transparency. We continue to support businesses, and this is a very important thing to do. But when there are no strings attached, they're walking away with money out of our country, leaving workers in the position that they are at NEMAC, that they have been at Cami Automotive, up the road, and other places in our community. We can no longer continue this model where we hand over money and then we have no accountability or no understanding of how that has been effective in keeping jobs in our community. It's simply not working.
We could be, all of our government fleets, we could be saying that we're dedicated to Canadian manufactured government fleets. It could be part of a vision, and when you are doing grants and giving money, there are strings attached. And those strings attached, that's, part of a strategy.
Yes.
We don't have a game plan, and that's what we keep reiterating. All we have are pretty words during a campaign time and failed promises, and an erosion of our middle class that's making Windsor and Essex counties suffer.
There we go.
All right, thank you.